We can all agree that Stephen Ross has been an enabler. Stephen Ross, well, he's been a problem for the Miami Dolphins and putting the right people in charge. So, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't seem like he's going to sell the team anytime soon, as it's come out that he rejected a $10 billion bid for the team. Man, we're going to discuss that, plus a whole lot more, including Darren Waller getting moved to IR, as well as the latest trade deadline buzz surrounding the Miami Dolphins. So do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it!
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown.
And he will score! Field on the near side, man open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa.
Touchdown!
He's going deep. He's going up for the touchdown again. Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one. Appreciate each and every one of you coming through. As you do me the favor. Goes a long way right now, especially with the team being as bad as they are. Smash that like button. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe. We are about 800 away from hitting 19,000. We're about 1,800 away from hitting good old 20,000. And listen, I'm going to be completely honest with you. When I got that copyright strike, when that stream got suspended at the beginning of the month, they definitely impacted my channel. So shout out to YouTube. Not only did you take 30% of my revenue, but you know, you're out here impacting my channel too because I got a strike. So there you go. So yeah, hitting the like button, doing all that, it goes a whole long way. Appreciate y'all coming through. We got a lot to talk about, you know. Former Dolphin, he said some really good things about the Dolphins that there's just no way you can agree. You can't agree with what he said. We'll talk about that. Talk about Stephen Ross. We'll have more on whether Tua and McDaniel are beefing a little bit. We'll talk about the latest trade deadline buzz as it's picking up a little bit. So we got a lot to go over here. But before we do, I do want to shout out the sponsor of today's video, and that of course is Sleeper. Think you know football? Then try to win some money with the Sleeper app. Head in there right now. I mean, how can you not like Jordan Addison 48.5 yards over with the way Jonathan Taylor's scoring touchdowns? How can you not like him to score over a touchdown? Same with Cam Scatterbo. This guy's just a touchdown machine. But John Robinson, you know you got to like that. I mean, he's facing the Dolphins. We all know how that's probably going to go, right? Let's be honest. And if that would have been Jackson Dart, one rushing touchdown instead of passing touchdown, I would have taken that for sure. And you know I'm going to be that guy. You got to take Herbert on the under against Flores and the Minnesota Vikings defense. But I'll say go check out Sleeper right now. Use promo code PHINSIDE and you will get a 100% deposit match up to $100. Terms and conditions do apply. With more stats than any other daily fantasy app, just choose 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame or live. Pick more or less from the predicted stats, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money. Like I said, use promo code PHINSIDE, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. All right? Shout out to Sleeper. So, all of that said, let's start talking things off. And let's start off with, football is a game, but it's something that we also play. Since we've been kids, we've been playing it on Sega, we've been playing it on PlayStation, whatever. I remember, who remembers Game Day from back in the 90s with Jerome Bettis, the bus all over the cover of those game days on the first PlayStation. I used to let my dad pick the Miami Dolphins and I just whoop him. It hurt, but I did it because my dad is obviously who got me into being a Dolphin fan, and that was the only team he really followed. So I would let him be Marino and I'd give him that butt whooping. But anyways, EA Sports has renewed exclusivity with the NFL through 2030. So there's going to be no NFL 2K coming back. All right. And I know people are going to get mad at EA, but it's crazy because when you actually look into this, all right, in the negotiations, EA tried to tell the NFL they want an open contract so there's competition, but the NFL basically refused and told them they got to sign an exclusive deal. The NFL is the one who's forced exclusivity onto EA. And you're going to say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they do that? Because it's easier for the NFL to have control over one partner, EA, than to deal with multiple studios, which have their own creative direction, budget, timelines, et cetera, et cetera. So this is actually the NFL who wanted exclusivity. And what's crazy, too, is also with exclusivity, that's more money. So not only are they forcing them into an exclusive deal, they're forcing them to put up a lot more money than an open contract would have cost them. So that's kind of crazy. So for all of you that I know there's a ton of you. There's a ton of you that wanted NFL 2K. Man, I remember those NFL 2Ks, like the one with Warren Sapp's face on the cover where you could see through the mask while you're playing. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Now, I saw a discussion when I was waiting to go live in the chat, and that was regarding general manager, right? And I saw one name popping up, and I'll bring it up here. It actually, I believe it popped up on a donation, if I remember correctly. Go get Ed Dodds from Indy and let him cook. Listen, Ed Dodds is actually someone I've talked about on this channel for like a few years. Not just like recently. Ed Dodds is someone I've talked about for a few years. All right. Ed Dodds is very highly regarded around the NFL for his talent evaluation and scouting ability. For those of you who don't know who Ed Dodds is, okay, Ed Dodds is with the Indianapolis Colts, and he has been with the Indianapolis Colts for actually quite some time. But yeah, he's been one of the guys that's been pretty high on my list. And he's been the assistant general manager there for quite some time, right? He was one of the people that built that Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom, right? He's been in Indy for like the last 7 years, and he's been the right-hand man of Chris Ballard. So he's been a guy that I've been very fond of. A guy that I also wanted was Mike Borgonzi, but he's gone, right? He went to Tennessee. I think another one that you got to seriously consider. Another one you got to seriously consider, in my eyes at least, is Ray Agnew from the Detroit Lions. He's look at what he's done with I know people love throwing this word out, so let's throw it out here. With a limited quarterback like Jared Goff. Remember, Jared Goff was cast off and viewed by McVay as someone I can't win with, and look at what they've done with him in Detroit. He's played better than he ever did under McVay. So, Ray Agnew, he's been a big part in what they've built over there in Detroit too, and how well they've drafted. Right? He's been Brad Holmes' right-hand man, and you could make the argument Ray Agnew kind of gives you a little bit of that Ozzie Newsome feel. I actually am super high I would actually have Ray Agnew at the top of my GM list. You know, like that's who I would have at the top of my GM search. It would be Ray Agnew. Right? I think he's done a great job. So, yeah, that's where I'd be at. Ray Agnew is the guy I'd be offering up to be the new GM. If and when, I don't know if they're gonna move off of this guy. I mean, I see, beat writers are talking about the Greer, Flores connection. How long we've been talking about that on this channel? Since last season, we've been talking about this on this channel, that Flores, the Flores thing, and Greer knows where the bodies are buried. We've been talking about this for like over a year on this channel. I mean, we know what the deal is over here. You know what I mean? So, I mean, and I've said, I think, but, I sit here and I talk about Ray Agnew. We talk about Ed Dodds. I'm just going to go back to what I've said. I got a feeling they are going to make Brandon Shore. I have a feeling Brandon Shore is going to be the GM. So, and I know that don't get anyone excited. It don't get me excited. Let me tell you that. Why would Ray Agnew leave Detroit when things are going great over there in Reason? Because it's a job promotion. It's a promotion. Why did Josh McDaniels leave New England multiple times when things were great to take head coaching jobs that ended up falling flat on their face? It's a promotion. And let me be honest, if Ray Agnew can turn this around, that man will be a savior and a god in Miami. Let's be honest with ourselves. So, I know people think that maybe they brought in Champ Kelly to groom for the job or whatever the case may be. I think it's going to be Brandon Shore. And I think I wouldn't even be shocked. And we talked about this last season. I wouldn't even be shocked if they move Chris Greer to like an executive job. They just shift him. They just move him to another part of the building. Jason Stamps says, you had a good duo you brought up in Spags and Bergonzi. Yeah, and Bergonzi's gone. He's in Tennessee. I like Spags, I think people are way too harsh on Spags, man. It's been how long since he was a head coach? Right? Like, guys eventually, and the thing that I would like about Spags is he's never won a Super Bowl as a head coach. He's only ever won one as a coordinator. So, if you're going to get an experienced head coach, you want to get one that's hungry, right? You want to get one that's hungry. So, but I mean, that's a different conversation for a different day. I mean, let's be real here. Doesn't look like the end is in sight anytime soon for Mike McDaniel in Miami. And go check out the latest short I put up. For all of you that might have missed the post-game show, I basically laid it out for you. So go check that one out. But I'm not holding my breath that major changes are coming, and that's because of who is in charge. Obviously being Stephen Ross. I remember a couple months ago, I told you guys, man, I've been thinking about this, but I don't really want to say because I don't want to put that energy out there about Ross being one of the main problems. Now I'm fully on that train. I'm driving it, man. It is what it is. So, speaking of Stephen Ross, I know we were talking a lot, especially about, Ross was named the Jabroni of the week, Ross being an enabler, all that kind of stuff. We're talking about the beef and clear, subtle shots going on between McDaniel and two in the media. That's the feeling you're getting. That this is not going to get better anytime soon. Oh crap, here we go. And this is what this article kind of lays out. There's a few pieces in this article that are not good and that should not sit well with the average Dolphin fan, with the hardcore Dolphin fan. So let's get into this article from Barry Jackson. There's a lot to go over here. Again, it's a great job. We basically learn what the succession plan is moving forward. And we also learn about Stephen Ross and a bid that he turned down. And if he turned down this bid, I don't know what it's going to take to pry this team from his hands. So let's get into it. All of Dolphins owner Stephen Ross's actions have strongly suggested that he wants to keep the franchise in his family long term. Even as he watches his team flounder at 1-6, and even as he continues a 16-year struggle to put a winning product on the field, Ross, 85, has rejected overtures from hedge fund billionaire Ken Griffin, designated his daughter Jennifer as his successor, and has given a significant non-Dolphin sports management job to his son-in-law, Dan Silman, an experienced sports executive who is married to Ross's daughter, Kim. A source reiterated that the team is not for sale. But even if Ross changed his mind and decided to sell majority interest in the franchise, there would be deterrence because of tax law. In the past 2 years, Ross rejected a $10 billion offer from an unidentified buyer to purchase the team, Hard Rock Stadium, and the Miami Grand Prix. You guys, how do you read that and think this team is ever being sold? It ain't happening. It is not happening. NFL franchises have continued to appreciate in value. The sport remains widely popular, and billions in television revenue have helped owners reap massive returns on their investments. Over 2008 and 2009, Ross paid $1.1 billion to Wayne Huizenga to buy 95% interest in the Dolphins and the stadium. Last year, he sold a 13% stake in the team, the stadium, Miami Grand Prix, the Miami Open tennis tournament, in a transaction that reportedly generated $1.05 billion for Ross. Of that 13%, private equity from firm Ares bought 10%, and Brooklyn Nets owner Joe Tsai purchased the other 3%. So let's say Ross hypothetically sold his remaining 84.5% stake of the team at Hard Rock Stadium for $10 billion. That means a nearly $9 billion gain over what he paid Huizenga, and he would owe more than $1 billion in capital gains taxes based on last year's total valuation of $8.1 billion. Selling 13% last year likely cost Ross more than $150 million in capital gains taxes, though many adjustments and variables can impact those numbers. If Ross were to pass away as the owner of the team and his family then sold the team, they would avoid the $1 billion plus in capital gains taxes because the IRS gives special treatment to appreciated assets when someone dies. But in this scenario, his family would get hit with an estate tax, potentially of more than $2.5 billion, according to an official who has worked on sports transactions. Oh my God. The family would need to pay that tax regardless of whether the franchise was sold to an outside buyer after Ross's death or simply passed on to his daughter Jennifer. Those taxes typically must be paid within 9 months of death. So continuing to own the team makes financial sense for Ross. Beyond that, indications are that Ross's family is receptive to owning and running the team at some point. Jennifer Ross reportedly already owns a piece of the team. Silman, identified in his Wikipedia page as a sports executive, entrepreneur, and film producer, has emerged as a potentially prominent figure in the Dolphins' future, though Ross has never confirmed if he will be involved in running the team with his daughters when Ross passes on ownership. Since 2017, he has been the CEO of Ross-owned Relevant Sports, a global sports and entertainment company that represents commercial rights for European soccer leagues. The company is part of a larger portfolio of assets that includes the Dolphins, Hard Rock, and other real estate and media businesses. Silman, who was born in 1989, studied finances at the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan and started his own firm, Compass Management Group, which offered financial services to athletes and entertainers. Among his previous clients was longtime Eagles defensive lineman Brandon Graham. After selling Compass in 2014, Silman joined RSC Ventures, a private investment firm owned by Ross. He helped bring the iconic Barcelona-Real Madrid game to Hard Rock Stadium in 2017, marking the first time those teams played each other on U.S. soil. As CEO of Relevant, Silman has transitioned the business from a live events company to a global commercials right property for soccer. Forbes included Silman on its 2018 30 Under 30 list of influential people in various industries, and Sports Business Journal recognized him on its 40 Under 40 list in 2019 and again in 2022. Silman, a longtime business partner of Golden State Warriors forward Draymond Green, is a member of the FIFA World Cup's Miami Host Committee Board of Directors. Long-term, Silman is positioned to run the team with his sister-in-law, Jennifer. In October 2022, Ross notified the NFL that he was changing his successor as the team's managing general partner from Bruce Beal to his daughter, Jennifer. 2 months before that, the NFL disciplined Ross and Beal for tampering violations of unprecedented scope and severity resulting from the team pursuing coach Sean Payton and quarterback Tom Brady. Ross was suspended for 2 months and fined $1.5 million, while Beal was fined $500,000 and suspended from league meetings for the remainder of the 2020 season. The league also took away the Dolphins' 2023 first-round pick and a third-rounder in 2024. Even before Beal's misstep, Ross reportedly planned to make Jennifer a successor, though Ross has never confirmed that publicly and spoken to Dolphins reporter only once this decade when Mike McDaniel was hired as head coach. Ross is the NFL's seventh richest sports owner with a net worth of $17 billion according to Forbes. He's been praised for his philanthropy and for privately financing a $755 million in improvements to Hard Rock Stadium. Ross Silman and team president Tom Garfinkel have been instrumental in helping lure big events to the stadium, including 7 World Cup games next summer, Super Bowl 54 in 2020, the Miami Open tennis tournament, Formula One Miami Grand Prix, the season's college football playoff championship game, and high-profile concerts including Taylor Swift. But the Dolphins have made the postseason only 3 times and haven't won a playoff game during Ross's 16 years as majority owner. For now, Ross continues to stand by coach Mike McDaniel and general manager Chris Greer. A business associate said he entered this season wanting to give both men an extended period to see if they could get the franchise back on track after last year's step back from 11-7 to 8-9. The team's poor start has not changed that approach, but patience is being tested. A coaching change after Sunday's game in Atlanta would seem unlikely because the Dolphins play again 5 days later on October 30th against Baltimore. But the 9-day break between the Ravens game and a November 9th home game against Buffalo would give Ross time to reevaluate if the Dolphins do keep losing. So, I mean, listen, okay, it feels like he sold that 13%, right, for that $1.05 billion. I mean, he basically recouped back what he made when he bought the team from Wayne Huizenga, right? So if he were to sell that, if he's not going to sell that 84.5% for $10 billion, I don't even think he'd sell it for $15 billion. I really honestly don't. And then, I'm reading up on this Dan Silman guy and, looking into this whole situation. We brought it up a couple days ago here before this article came out. And it's funny because I just watched the Netflix special yesterday, Who Killed the Montreal Expos, right? And it's funny because when you watch that, when the Montreal Expos got bought by Jeffrey Loria in 1999, what did he do? He had married a woman, and his stepson, David Sampson, was the guy that he put in charge basically as his right-hand man, right? He was like the vice president, the executive vice president, and he was one of the main. Now, I don't think we're going to get moved. I don't think that's going to happen. But he was, a key figure in why the Montreal Expos got moved to the Washington Nationals. And all I can sit here is see the parallels here, Sampson had never had any experience running an NFL team, a Major League Baseball team, nothing like that. Here we are bringing in this Silman guy. And the reason why I'm talking a little heavier about Silman than that article did was because, remember, what we went over a few days ago. What did we go over a few days ago? That the report that Dan Silman Tom Garfinkel and Stephen Ross are going to be heavily involved in the Miami Dolphins trade deadline approach. And what did I say? Why is a guy like Dan Silman, who sells TV rights to UEFA, why is this guy being involved in these type of decisions? You know, Tom Garfinkel, that's an F1 guy. That's an event guy. That's not a football mind. Once again, Stephen Ross is putting people who don't have football minds in the position to make football decisions for this franchise. You know, that makes no sense. And I know Jeffrey Loria, I know a lot of you guys, when he took over the Marlins, you know, I'm not even going to get into that. I know a lot of you guys weren't fans of him when he took over the Marlins, for sure, right? So, you know, the guy was pretty much a scam with what he did with the Marlins. You know, anyways. But I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this, and, you know, this is his succession plan. Now, we have got to hope, all right? You know, we have got to hope that we go out there and we get someone like, you know, Carly Ursay. Or, you know, we got to hope, you know, these Ross daughters are like the Ursay daughters. You know, we better hope that's what we're getting here. Because if we aren't getting someone like Carly Ursay, and if we're going to get people that are just going to sit back and try to collect every paycheck, then this ain't going to be good. You know, we better hope we are getting Charlie Ursay's daughters. That's all you can say. You know, because if we don't, then what? You know? So, I don't know. I'm sitting here looking at this as being the success. This is a succession plan. And, you know, we just don't know enough. And we're seeing, the problem is we're not seeing anyone with football minds involved here. You know? Like, at the end of the day, that's an issue here. And I don't know if it's going to get better. I don't know. I just don't know what to tell you guys at this point. You know, I mean, there's no... What hope is there to sell you guys right now? So, I don't know. Dan Stillman, here we go. All right, so let's keep going here right now. Let's get into some other stuff. Right now, obviously, we are a few weeks away from the trade deadline. And, well, I mean, you know, here we are, all right? Like, here we are with the trade deadline and some updates for you guys, because there is a lot to go on. And Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano, they had a specific section on their latest buzz this week just talking about the Dolphins. Literally just talking about the Dolphins. So let's show you guys exactly what was said in that. All right. All right. So, call it now. How many Dolphins could be traded before the deadline? Fowler, I'll say 2. A pass rusher and one other. The Dolphins have Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb to deal with Phillips having the most trade value of Miami's edge rushers, several personnel departments have been enamored with his trajectory. All right. Miami doesn't appear ready to give the 2026 free agent an extension. So there's no extension planned for Jalen Phillips right there in front of you. All right. It could be similar to Washington trading Chase Young and Montez Sweat at the trade deadline 2 years ago. The Dolphins are getting calls on wide receiver Jalen Waddle, but don't have plans to trade him at this point. That can always change, but with Tyreek Hill injured, Waddle is a building block who can translate to any offense, which helps for a team that appears headed for major transition. He's owed $36 million over 2025 to 2026, which is reasonable for high-end players at his position. Micah Fitzpatrick is also on Jeremy Fowler's radar. So while he's not sure a complete house cleaning is in order, it would surprise Jeremy Fowler if the Dolphins stood pat. This is a team with roster concerns, and those 8 2026 draft picks will not address them all. So, oh boy. Dan Graziano says, I agree with you about Waddle, particularly since his contract makes him tougher to trade. Jalen Wright, who has slipped behind rookie Ollie Gordon on the depth chart, could also be a player who moves. There will be teams interested in picking up a running back, with the Chargers and Texans being 2 teams I've heard mentioned, and there are sure to be others. Either way, this Dolphins season has not gone the way anybody hoped it would. And there's a lot of chatter about significant change, which we touched on in this space last week. If they're looking ahead to next year as a reset, rebuild scenario, they're going to listen to calls on almost anyone. My biggest question is what they'll do with Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback. He has $54 million in guaranteed money coming in 2026. It seems to have regressed significantly. Can Miami rebuild around him with any degree of confidence? Is there a glimmer of a chance that the Miami Dolphins could package him with a draft pick and get a team to trade for him? Trade deadline talk is easy when we just look at guys whose contract situations make them expendable for a team going nowhere. What Mike McDaniel helped bring out of him was processing and decision making. He thinks through the game well, throws with anticipation. He's missing that touch right now. And after placing teammates directly under a teal and orange colored bus in a post-week 6 news conference, it's fair to wonder whether he's lost the trust of the locker room too. His teammates certainly played Sunday's game as if he had. And it wasn't long ago, August 2024, when Tagovailoa aired out Brian Flores in what felt like a payback attempt. So Tagovailoa is a quarterback who's regressing, has dealt with previous concussion injuries, and has publicly divulged what happens behind the scenes in the NFL locker room multiple times. But this is the era of reclamation project quarterbacks, and Tagovailoa has had stretches of high efficiency. Maybe Miami runs it back with him. What is the best option for Tagovailoa and the Dolphins moving forward? Dan. Given the contractual commitment they made to Tagovailoa, the best option is to get him playing the way he did when McDaniel first arrived. If the coach can't make that happen, it stands to reason they could look for a replacement. If that comes to pass, the Dolphins have major decisions to make about Tagovailoa in the direction of the franchise. A new coach probably would have some say in the direction on whether to keep the quarterback or take the dead money hit. I mean, you would think that they would have the right. You would think that they have the right. But let's be real here. I doubt it. I doubt it. I doubt it. I don't think they're going to get another shot. You know? I'm telling you right now, listen. You would think they would tell a new coach, hey, do what you want. You and the new GM, go get your guy if you want a new guy. You would think that would be the case. But let's be real here. Do you really think that's going to be the case? They forced Tua Tagovailoa on Mike McDaniel. They forced coaches. They forced Danny Crossman. They forced, Josh Boyer on Mike McDaniel. We have a history. I mean, we've learned how they tried to, persuade Brian Flores into tanking, and meeting with Tom Brady on a yacht, et cetera, et cetera. We have an ownership group that clearly continues to involve themselves in these situations. So, I mean, what can we expect? Should the new GM and new coach be given full reign and decision what to do? 110%. Is that likely to happen? Based on the historical track record of this team, I doubt it. It is what it is. So, but it does seem like, and it seemed this way the whole time, it seems like it's going to more likely be a pass rusher. It is interesting that Fowler did mention Minkah Fitzpatrick being on his radar because, listen, if Minkah wants to go win somewhere, what are you going to say to him? No? What are you going to say to him? No? He's come into a complete disaster. I also think it's pretty interesting that Fowler mentions that it doesn't look like they're going to pay Jalen Phillips, so it does make sense. Graziano named Jalen Wright, someone I've named to channel members and Patreons. So, I mean, we'll see where this goes, but I expect this team to be active for sure. And I mean, speaking of the roster right now, if you guys haven't seen what happened today, Greg Dulcich was signed to the active roster off the practice squad, while Darren Waller was placed on injured reserve. They also signed Chris Myrick to the practice squad. He had worked out with the team yesterday. So all of us, because I wanted to see him too, all of us that wanted to see Greg Dulcich and what he could offer this team, we are going to get our wish. And if they had any plans of trading Darren Waller because he may have created a little bit of value, it seems those thoughts and ideas are now out the window. So I wouldn't expect that anytime soon. Looks like we're just going to lose Darren Waller for nothing, because if they move off from Mike McDaniel, Frank Smith, and everyone, there ain't no way Darren Waller's coming back here. Like I said, I would have tried to trade Darren Waller for some assets. Now, I want to play this clip from the arena with Richie Incognito. He said some pretty interesting things, and he said some things that I don't think there's any way you can't agree with them. I think he was pretty spot on with his assessment. And man, Richie, he's got the knack for being in front of the camera. Let me tell you that. But this is what Richie Incognito said on the arena. Check this out.
I hate this. I hate the whole situation they have brewing down there.
Yeah.
This is a dumpster fire, and you have McDaniel and Tua throwing bags of gasoline into the dumpster fire. We look at this guy on TV. I do not see a leader of men. When I'm going out there on Sunday and I want to rip someone's head off, I'm not getting fired up by this guy's pregame speech, right? Now let's go to Tua. Tua last week was talking about guys being late, and he's talking about leadership. Well, the leadership starts and ends with Tua because you're the franchise quarterback.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was taking a side on, was he pointing fingers at the locker room? I think when he said leadership, he was pointing a finger right at Mike McDaniel.
Yep,
because when you have people constantly late in a professional sports organization, that shows fractures. That shows favoritism. Oh, you were 5 minutes late. It's all good. You go out there and play. That, to me, is the biggest fundamental flaw of this entire operation. McDaniel's going to roll with Tua. This offense was built for Tua. He's going down swinging with his guy. He's going to be fired imminently. I saw Mr. Ross put out a statement, and he said he's going to give Greer and McDaniel time to get this right. It's not working. And with Tua throwing up punts to the defense, it's definitely not working. If I just look at the Miami Dolphins, I love playing there. I love Mr. Ross. He was very, very good to us. But what I see is Mr. Ross as an absentee owner. He's busy building billion-dollar companies and developing, right? And if you look at Miami Dolphins' issues the last call it 10, 15 years, it's him trusting the wrong guys. Him trusting basically to come over and hand the keys to the organization and let them run the show without any oversight, without any pressure. And now we're in a situation where we have Chris Greer, and he's bringing in guys that don't fit the mold. These guys aren't tough. They're not physical. Then you have that as a leader, as a head coach. And this is what you get. You get them dead in the water 7 games into the season, and there's no one saving them. They got a clean house.
Yeah, I'm 100% with Richie on this. I hate it. I mean, why even say that? I get that you're trying to make a joke and make a lighthearted comment and make light of the situation.
About the 10
but you are one of the worst teams in the NFL. There's a time and place for that. And I get that's who Mike McDaniel is, but you can't do that, man. You just can't do that. You're bottom in the NFL in every category in your offense. You're the play caller, and every category of your offense is bottom of the NFL. You have Tua, who leads the NFL in interceptions, tied with Geno Smith, and he has 10 interceptions, by the way. I don't know if that was the reason he said 10 and made a jab at him, but I hate that.
By the way, that leads the NFL.
It does. It's tied with Geno Smith with 10 right now. But you're sitting there making jokes when you have players in the locker room that are busting their ass for money, for their livelihood, for their future, and you're up there at you could say the Jets, but one of the worst teams in the NFL, making light of the situation. It's not fair to the players. It's disrespectful to the fan base because they're not having fun. They're not making jokes right now. They want a winner. They want a team that they can cheer for, and you're saying those type of things. And look, I'm not the biggest Tua fan in the world, but now you just created a distraction furthermore for your quarterback after Tua just got done last week calling out players or Mike McDaniel, whoever he said for those player-ran meetings. Your quarterback and your head coach are the leaders of your organization, and they are creating more distraction than they are fixing problems right now. It's unacceptable. It's a ticking time bomb. I don't know how much longer Mike McDaniel will be there or Tua, but they needed to make a decision very soon.
So I agree with basically everything that was said there. I think, and what they were talking about was Mike McDaniel's little comment about what he expects from Tua is to not throw 10 interceptions. And I think they're 110% right. I think let's break it down. I think Richie Incognito was 110% right. Tua was calling out Mike McDaniel last week, post-game after the Week 6 loss, all right? He was doing it again this week when he was talking about operations, et cetera, and how he can't multitask. He basically said, I've got to play quarterback and coach. Then you got Mike McDaniel calling Tua out over the 10 interceptions. And, Mike McDaniel making post-game comments about you got players calling other players out when really it's you guys that are at fault. You got to take a look in the mirror, basically. I mean, a lot of subtle back and forths. And they're right. Your quarterback and your head coach are creating nothing but a distraction in the media. And, I don't think either one is being a good leader right now. I don't think Tua is being a good leader. I don't think Mike McDaniel is being a good leader. And then we were already questioning, especially after what went down with Ramsey, is this guy Mike McDaniel, is he a leader of men? This was a legitimate question last year. It was a legitimate question when things started to collapse at the end of 2023, right? And that question has continued to surface, and Mike McDaniel hasn't shown that he's a leader of men. And right now, Tua, the way he's going about leading, it's clearly not resonating with the locker room, right? Like, it is with a few guys. You had Jalen Phillips defend him, Teddy Bruschi, one of the analysts, came out and defended Tua. But I also agree with what Richie says. Whether it's team meetings or player-led meetings, players not showing up. I know everyone tried to throw the player-led meetings on Tua and the players and the captains that are calling the meetings, but I've been sitting here saying, no, this is deeper than that. These players have told us that these coaches are sitting in on these player-led meetings, and people are still skipping. People are still missing. And Richie Incognito is not wrong. You want a little piece of info about Tyreek Hill? I'll give you one right here. I talked to someone, okay, who is a national reporter, okay? And I spoke with them recently about this whole situation. I'm not going to get into who it was. But they told me a Tyreek story from last year, all right? This is what I was told. You remember when Tyreek missed that Jets game and the picture popped up of him working in Soul Runner because he missed the practice or whatever. He skipped practice. I was told Tyreek Hill was telling people he was going to skip the practice before the practice. He's telling people, yeah, I ain't coming tomorrow. Yeah, I ain't coming tomorrow. And what would Mike McDaniel do? Exactly what Richie Incognito said. Mike McDaniel would make an excuse for Tyreek Hill. You know, he would come out in front of the media, oh, Tyreek Hill is here, he's just dealing with something, blah, 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 blah. No, Tyreek Hill was telling people flat out, I ain't coming to practice. I'll go even further. You know what Tyreek Hill has told people privately? 2023 was our year. We didn't win it, we missed it. So what does that tell you? When he's telling people last year, yeah, I'm going to skip practices, and then you got the head coach making excuses for him. Well, he's also telling people privately, whoever will listen, well, 2023 was our year and we missed it. What does that tell you right there? That tells you Tyreek Hill realizes 2023 was the year they missed it and he's been checked out. When things went south last year, he checked out right away. His first thought process was, we had our shot last year, dog, and we missed it. And do not think he is the only one who thinks that in that building. Don't think for a second. Just like I told you when they traded Ramsey. Don't think for a second Ramsey is the only one, player or coaches, in that building that's out on Mike McDaniel. Especially after I went to training camp and the things I heard at training camp. Now, Mike McDaniel came out today and said there is zero uncertainty on Tua and my conviction on him and my belief in him. Talked about how they're very eager to do their jobs together, blah, 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 blah. Now, he did also say, Mike McDaniel said that the two men, Tua and Mike McDaniel, met on Monday for an hour and 1.5 hours on Tuesday. So they had an hour meeting on Monday and an 1.5 hour meeting yesterday. So, now Mike McDaniel really did not say anything else. I don't think there's going to be any lineup changes, right? I don't think that's going to happen at all. He did say Quinn Ewers and Zach Wilson are battling for the number 2 quarterback job this week. So he wants to solidify that. I mean, what's the discussion? Ewers made that throw, just go with Ewers. If Ewers already got you to the point where you're making the $6 million man, which we all knew was a bad signing and active, what are we waiting for? So, and he was asked to follow up about, if changing their play style, if we have to, what he meant by that. So he said if you need to motion more or motion less, whatever, the run-pass ratio. He said he's looking to diversify on offense. So I don't know. Take that for what he's saying. I mean, this guy, we're just getting a whole bunch of different answers here. But, I mean, they were 110% right. You're out here still taking shots. You're making Tua the butt end of the joke. And it's not even that Tua's the butt end of the joke. Why are we up here and joking in front of the podium? I don't care whether it's Tua's the butt end of the joke. I don't care whether you're the butt end of the joke. I don't care whether the reporter's the butt end of the joke. I don't care who's the butt end of the joke. Why are we out here joking at the podium when this team is 1-6? And why are we continuing to add gasoline to the fire like Richie Incognito said? I just think, Mike McDaniel is tone deaf right now. And the quarterback's tone deaf too, So it is what it is. Here we are. We're all stuck in the middle. Jokers to the left of me, clowns to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. That's what we're living right now as Miami Dolphin fans. Guys, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I am going to get out of here. I'll be back tomorrow with Neil Driscoll. Appreciate each and every one of you. Smash that like button. Do me the favor. Over 350 of you in the room. Smash that like button on your way out. and on your way in. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all on the next one. You already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. We'll see y'all on the next one, everyone.